games. We'll just say talking about Vidya. Alright. Do you use Chatty at all? No, I don't. I don't know what that is. Probably, Clay, yeah. Alright, so this is coming from Coffee Stain. So I actually wanted to check into this. So there was a patch for City Skylines with a ton of created content, like a ton of stuff added to it, like with train stations and stuff that I kind of want to check out. But there's also stuff with Satisfactory that I want to look into too.
Hey everyone, my name's Jason. I'm a
Hi,
community
Jace.
manager at Coffee Stain Studios, and you've seen the thumbnail and title, and I think we've given, we've probably given it away at this point. But that's right, in Update 8, we are moving Satisfactory from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5.
Wow.
How exciting, yay, woo! This is something that we've sort of been back and forth on and try to dance around a little bit on live streams when people ask these questions.
Is that a poo emoji?
And it was, we're really glad to be able to talk about this video now, because it was getting to the point on streams where it was like, well, we say we're not sure if we're doing it or not, which was technically true, but then it got to a point where we're like, we're kind of sure, but we can't leak it. Okay, so we're getting this video out of the way, and now we can just talk openly about it.
Homeboy's got a
Yeah,
Last
no,
of
we
Us
were
poster back there.
investigating this for quite some time, and we weren't sure for the longest time if we were going to be committing to this change or not. But hey, this video's here. So Unreal Engine 5 is coming for Satisfactory. So yeah, this news is likely very exciting to hear, and for good reason, as you'll see throughout this video as we talk
What
about
about
it. It is
Snit's
exciting.
apartment?
But there is a couple of housekeeping things that you need to know before we go on. The first thing that I want to do is set expectations off the bat.
Yeah, I saw it.
When we release Update 8 on experimental, it will be really, really experimental. Okay, so we're transitioning, from Unreal Engine 4 to like a major upgrade to the next major version of the engine, which will be Unreal Engine 5.1.1. And so with that, there's gonna be some growing pains. So if experimental was experimental before, at launch, it's going to be really, really experimental, okay? And of course, like, what our hope is that, like, when we, things seem fine to us internally, but we suspect that when we put it out to you guys, and there's going to be bajillion people playing the game, you guys will come across any issues that were missed. And so please give us feedback on the QA site, questions.satisfactorygame.com, and we're going to use that feedback to make sure we can plug all the holes in Unreal Engine 5 and make sure that the game returns to be really, really stable. Right now, things seem fine, okay? There's no reason why we feel confident that we can put it out there, otherwise we wouldn't do it, right? But, like, past experiences taught us that when it goes out to everyone else, any issue that can happen will happen, and then we'll hear about it. And there's no amount of testing in house we can do.
Yeah, Boxy, we were listening to it on
that
here.
can really protect us against that. Okay, so
yeah, unit for sure.
Just setting expectations. It should be fine, but there's a risk that things will be up and down. The second thing I want to talk about is if you're going to give Unreal Engine 5 a go on experimental when Update 8 launches, please back up your saves. I don't have any reason that Unreal Engine 5 will break your saves, but whenever we make these changes, it's really important that you back up your saves.
I feel like I'm
if
in
something happens
movie right now.
where your hardware is not compatible with Unreal Engine 5, or if there's just some bug in our code and that stops you from playing, and or it gives you crashes later, but you've already saved over your save files, then you may not be able to downgrade back to the early access version.
That was weird.
Unreal Engine 4, and you really don't want to play those kind of games. Okay, so make sure you back up your save file before this happens, just as a safety precaution. Okay. Now we do have a lot that we're going to talk about today, so I'm going to actually add at the end of the video like a TLDR or a TLDW, I suppose in this case, section at the end of the video. So if you don't want all of these details, if you want to know like what does this mean, what does it mean, what happens, what are the cliff notes? We should have timeline chapters again, but if you're interested in all the details, keep watching and we'll work through it all together. Now, I'm going to break this video down into two major sections. The first section is...
Dude, this video is 40 minutes long. Whoa. Man, that's a lot of stuff. Holy balls. How far does this go? Jeez. Nanite, Lumen, World Partitioning, AA, Vehicle Physics, Enhanced Input, Audio Improvements. Do we get a performance increase? They absolutely should. I want to kind of go. I kind of want to go to that part. Are you the Steven Seagal of NASA? Nah. Maybe Steven Seagal circa 1988. Not now, though. Yeah, Unity, it's all good, brother. All right, let's go to the TLDR part. Let's see.
Promised, I'm going to just give a TLDR because this video has been massive, absolutely massive, okay? And so let's just do a quick TLDR of what this means for Satisfactory and what you guys can expect. So first of all, we anticipate growing pains from the launch of Update 8 on the experimental version of the game, and then we don't know what that ironing out process will be like, but we do expect that, and this also...
But here, pause real quick. Steven Seagal is, kind of got a little wacko. Yeah, as of late. So, yeah, Steven Seagal circa, Under Siege. 1990? Yeah, now we're talking. Yeah, that's cool. Lately, though, he Yeah, Pathfinder, yeah. Well, yeah, just... we'll call it strange behavior. Not to downplay it. We'll call it strange behavior, and we'll just leave it at that, man. But Under Siege, Steven Seagal. Now we're talking. He also runs like this. Yeah. Good news, you have an interview at a local electronics assembly company where my entire job would be putting things in holes. Chicka bow wow.
Includes dedicated servers. We do, however, believe that this will improve things greatly in the long run. We do believe it is worth it.
Yeah,
there are also a slew of new features that come with Unreal Engine 5 that we can take advantage of, so we believe that that is absolutely worth it. And for example, there's going to be better vehicle physics with the Chaos engine. There's going to be more efficient world map streaming with a world petition system. There's going to be better lighting with Lumen for those of you who can take advantage of Lumen. There's going to be better key binding for the player and less input bugs when it comes to that. We also think there's just going to be better fidelity in general when it comes to utilizing nanite where possible. So yeah, a whole bunch of new features coming with Unreal Engine 5 that we can take advantage of in Satisfactory. Overall, we expect similar or slightly worse performance at the launch of Update 8 Experimental for some folks. But we do expect that after some tweaks with community feedback, that we're actually quite confident that performance will improve over time. However, other new features like nanite and anti-aliasing options like TSR and FXAA will hopefully be able to be utilized by you guys, and so that you get more bang for your buck when it comes to performance, and hopefully it will mitigate some of your performance issues if you have them. So we'll see how that goes. And finally, we think that mods will for sure break at the experimental launch of Update 8. It is up to the modding community to make the changes they need to their tools and to mods to support the new versions of the game moving forward. Cool. If you run into any mod-related crashes, these are not things that we can solve. You will have to go to the modding community or the mod developers themselves and get an update on what's going on there. Okay, so that's the situation with mods. And that's the TLDR. That's all of it in a nutshell. If you want any more information about specifics about what I just said, and you fast forwarded to here, go back and watch the whole video, okay?
No, Jace, I don't want to.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me.
I don't want... All right, you're welcome, man. All right, cool. Anyway. Just got here after watching this. Yeah, I wanted to see it. Dude, U5, you're going to get performance improvements for sure. Yeah. What U5 can do is pretty hardcore, man. Coffee Stain Studios is the best example of what a community manager and communication team should be like. A+. Yeah, Snoot and Jace are awesome. They really do good work. I don't think they know who we are over here, but yeah, nothing but good things to say about those guys. Did you see the new tech demo of 5.2? I have not, no. But Phil, I have seen the original U5 trailer, and it's pretty hardcore. Like, U5's terrain building alone is unreal. Like, I just said that. Okay. Oh boy, I'm at that point in my life. Okay, cool. Unintentional puns. Lovely. No, it's really good. It's really good. Yeah. I did not do that on purpose. That was not supposed to be a joke. It's pretty bad. No, Pythos. Old people make puns. Yeah. Now how do you feel? Bring up the new demo? Well, we're here. Why not? I want to go play Kerbal, though. Just, yeah. 5.2 tech demo.
Thanks,
Full presentation. All right, let's see what we got here.
Tim. And hi, everyone. I'm excited to get to show you some of the new experimental features we've been working on for Unreal Engine 5.2. Let's take a look.
I don't know what that means, Pythos, but all right. Yeah, see what I'm talking about?
Last year,
This is all right. You know what? I'm gonna shut up. Just watch.
we
we'll watch
added
the
several
video.
new features to the engine to support foliage rendering, and the Fortnite team used those features to ship Battle Royale Chapter 4. At the same time, Jacob over there and the team at Quixel were experimenting with what's possible for photoreal foliage environments, as well as testing out the latest functionality that we've been building for Unreal Engine. So, Jacob's here with us today in the Unreal Editor. Let's explore the environment. And what better way to do that than off-roading? And what better way to off-road than in a Rivian R1T? Now, Rivian uses Unreal to power their instrument cluster, including 3D visualization of their vehicles. So we worked with them to bring the R1T
Wait,
to life
really?
in this experience. Let's head on out, Jacob.
Sure thing, on my way.
All right. So we're building tools for interactive and dynamic worlds. So here we have chaos physics simulating rocks that tumble as we drive over them, leaves bend out of the way, and we also added some real-time fluid simulation. We worked with the team at Rivian to set up Unreal's chaos vehicle model to simulate the suspension of the truck and how the electric motors drive each individual wheel. Chaos also simulates how the tires compress and deform, and Meta Sounds enabled the team to precisely resynthesize the sounds of the electric motors and mix them with the ambisonics of the jungle. So Rivian provided us with a highly detailed model of the truck, about 71 million polygons that were able to render in real time thanks to Nanite. Now, the Rivian not only looks incredibly realistic because of Lumen and Nanite, but also its materials. And today, we're introducing Substrate, our new material framework.
Is that the UV map in real time? Drummer, this is not a UV map. It's some type of tessellation renderer here, but I'm not like 100% sure what the hell's going on here. That is not a UV map. It's not that is not a UV map. There's too much squash and stretch on all the textures for it to be a UV map. That is something with tessellating geometry. So for however the game is doing it, it seems to be tessellating geometry in different ways depending on the angle that you look at. Because if you
71 million polygons.
If you look, the triangles. Oh, the triangles change. So it's LOD. It's LOD. That's that's render optimization right there.
Now the Rivian not only looks
You see how it's changing the level of detail, including the resolution on not only a texture, but even though, like I said, this is not a UV map. It's changing the resolution on not only the texture, but it's changing the res on the geometry as well. Which that's how it's able to do it. It's very well optimized. So yeah, instead of like having 3 or 4 different level of detail meshes for certain distances, it looks like it's a spatial. It's rendering spatial depending spatial level of detail, depending on like what angle you're looking at. Once again, this is just a guess. I don't know for sure. Meaning that if we were able to look at this truck on the other side right now, there would probably be nothing over there, or it would probably be the lowest level of detail for the geometry. So the guy is saying, oh, it's 71 million polygons. Dude, trying to render 71 million polygons and tessellating that into tries and then rendering it that's no, you need some smoke and mirrors to do that. And that's their smoke and mirrors. They have variable tessellation, so the resolution of the mesh seems to be changing depending on what angle you're looking at. And once again, that's just a guess. Guys, I haven't done 3D for years. That's what it looks like it's doing. Now, if you don't know me, what do I have? Like, how would I know? I went to school for doing 3D. Yeah, I went to school for this stuff. So, like, if you know me for rockets, that's all self-taught. That's what I went to school for. Those are individual polygons. Check the license plate. Yeah, but it seems to be changing the tessellation resolution depending on what you're looking at. It's like it's progressive level of detail change depending on render view. Yeah, so there's some pretty hardcore render algorithm going on here, Aqualex. It's not a static tessellator. It seems to be a dynamic tessellation, I guess. If I had to guess. That's a huge guess. Nanite generates a fallback mesh to the lowest level of detail, and as you get further away from the mesh, it progressively dials the mesh back to that fallback mesh. Yep, okay. Okay, Kyle, I'm in the ballpark, dude. I haven't done any 3D rendering in a long time, dude. That sounds right, though. Yeah, you probably said it better than me at this point. Probably know more about rockets than I do about 3D at this point. But, yeah, whatever. And I can do 25 million triangles in each frame.
And today, we're introducing Substrate, our new material framework.
That's pretty interesting render algorithms. It's really cool.
And to better demonstrate it, let's swap the paint
2008
for Opal. Now, of course, you can't order a Rivian with Opal body panels, but Opal was the internal code name for this project, and also a really great demonstration of Substrate's capabilities. The base layer models the iridescence, refraction, and reflections that occur inside of an opal. And on top of that is a layer representing the polished surface and how light is absorbed as it travels through that clear layer of varying depths. And now we can add back on the dust and dirt layers. And notice how the reflection changes when interacting with the dust layer, and that there are no artifacts along the transition from dirt to dust to opal. So Substrate is more expressive, enabling artists to create materials like this with different shading models and compose and layer those materials as they see fit.
Yeah, they're layering shaders. That is not anything particularly new. You can layer shaders if you know how to set up a shader in the hierarchy. So, you know how, guys, I always drone on and on about Kerbal hierarchies? Well, shaders, you can set them up in the same way. With the shader being your root part, and then different color maps plugging in, and you could do color maps in symmetry if we're going to talk in Kerbal terms. So you can have color maps in Mirror Sim, right? And then have a color map feeding into another color map, which is feeding into your shader. Layering shaders is not anything new, but the fact that it can do this in real time is pretty frigging impressive. Yeah, what the hell, Hooch? The panel gap sucks.
Go at throttle up.
Hey, Scott, what's the best way to learn UE5, and what about 3D modeling? 3D modeling, just get Blender. Okay, all right, hold on. I know I said I wasn't going to interrupt the video too much, but okay, here's the thing about 3D modeling. 3D modeling is tedious, it takes time, and it takes a lot of patience. It's like when I do a complicated build in Kerbal. That's what 3D modeling is like. That's part of the reason why I have the patience for building in Kerbal, because 3D modeler, you're gonna do something with Maya or with 3ds Max or Blender or whatever. You're gonna do something, and the thing isn't gonna like it, and it's gonna crash, and you're gonna pull your hair out. I'm used to dealing with stuff like that. Like, that's what I went to school for. So it's tedious, it takes time, and you need to be patient. Especially with the whole process for building a mesh, UV mapping, texturing, shading, and lighting, that takes time. So, Scott, how do you do it? Well, first of all, you got to be patient. Second of all, you got to love it. And if you love it, you're going to be patient with it, right? Like, you got to love it. So, how would you start? Seriously, get Blender. Find something simple like this, like a water bottle or something. Try to make that. Try to make it. Try to make it in 3D. Figure out what tools you would need to make this. That's how you go about doing it. Yeah, Kyle, it takes time, dude. 3D is tough. It's tough. Yeah, it's hard to do. Yeah, you have to love it. If you don't love it, you're not gonna last. Like, I don't mean to be like gatekeeping it. You should try. Everyone should try if you want to. See if it's the right thing for you, but you have to live it and breathe it, man. 3D is hardcore. Doing 3D art, yeah. When in doubt, make a teapot. Yeah, Cling, that's exactly what we did in school. Make a teapot or make a coffee cup or something like that. Now, okay, Scott, here's the best tip that I can give you. And I use this in Kerbal all the time. Every single rocket that I make, I apply this to, okay? With 3D art, especially, if you're doing some like hard surface modeling. So hard surface modeling would be like modeling this coffee mug, right? Hard surface modeling is just the objects in the environment. That's opposed to like environment modeling, which is where you're building the environment. Hard surface is part of environment modeling. Then there's character modeling, which is in like clothing modeling and stuff. And that's getting into cloth simulations and stuff and squash and stretch with UVs, because making skin on a character not like freak out when you do something like this with a 3D character is pretty damn tough. Also, we were talking about layered shaders. Think about how much of a pain in the butt it is to make skin look right on a character. Now, every game that you've played, you've probably looked at a character's skin and said, yeah, that looks right. Yeah, all right. It's difficult. Why is it difficult? Have you ever held a flashlight up to your fingertip? You can see through it, right? You can see through the skin. Skin absorbs light, but it also reflects light. So getting the shading right for doing this is difficult. That's really hard. And on top of it, it's a deformable mesh, which is tough. Now, that brings me into the next big thing. You've probably played a video game with a character that has skin, and you see them in a cutscene like, Sarge, we didn't get it, or we didn't get the objective. Mission failed. We'll get him next time, or whatever. Pick your game that you like. You probably didn't think anything of it. Yeah, it looks like skin. Here's the thing about 3D art. Shading and lighting, hard surface modeling, character modeling, whatever. So, I have an impact wrench right here. Don't ask why. It's from the shop, right? I have an impact wrench. Everyone knows what an impact wrench looks like, but no one knows what an impact wrench looks like. It's Schrodinger's knowledge of proportions is what I call it. So, if I went and modeled this, and the chuck, well, not the chuck, the drive on the impact wrench wasn't the right size. Maybe it was too big. Somebody will notice that, and somebody says you'll start getting some real uncanny valley stuff going on. So when you're doing 3D art, it's not necessarily about making it look exactly like the real one. All right? If you're going to try to make an exact replica, that's what CAD is. That's like working with engineering renders, which I also know how to do, right? But say you went and modeled this and you made it a little bit too big, right? Somebody will notice it. Not because they're an expert on impact drivers, not because they're an expert on power drills, because they've seen a power drill and it doesn't look right. That is a big thing to understand. With 3D art, especially if you're doing art for video games, whatever, even your coffee mug, getting the proportions right is super important, but sometimes you do the proportions exactly right and they don't work. It doesn't look right. So sometimes you have to fudge stuff. And that's the plausible realism rule that I do when we play KSP. You know all my rockets in KSP look like they could fly? I mean, obviously we make them fly in the game, but it looks, it's reasonable. Like, it looks correct. Right? Like the Saturn V nuclear stage that we just made for the challenge. That looks right. My SLS model, that looks right. My shuttle, we really tried hard to make that look correct. Are its proportions exact to a real shuttle? No. No, the fuselage is much too big. But it looks right. It looks the part. That's an important thing to understand if you want to get into 3D modeling. Sometimes, now getting your proportions right is important, but sometimes those proportions are not the real life proportions. So sometimes even this happens with modeling, it happens with animations, it happens with all kinds of stuff. Now, I'll give you guys an example. So, you guys ever seen Polar Express, that movie? Like, if you're older, you showed it to your kids or something, the 3D movie, the Polar Express. There's something weird about those animations, right? The voice acting is right, but sometimes the characters look like they're talking like this. Oh, wow, that's really neat. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. With Polar Express, they did mocap, and they used motion capture, so they have an actor or an actress, doing the voice and moving around, and then they took that mocap data and put it in the movie and then rendered it. They didn't bother to go in and smooth the animations out. If they did have an animator go in and smooth some stuff out, it wasn't exactly like, because you notice that some of the characters in that movie, go back and watch it, they look like they're a puppet. Right? They look like they're puppets. They look like they're fake. Like it's real uncanny valley stuff. As a 3D modeler, if you want to get into doing that, that's the best advice I can give. Sometimes you got to make it look right, even if it's not right. So follow proportions and get proportions right, but sometimes you fudge the proportions to make it look correct. Why would you ruin that movie? I mean, they are puppets. Yeah. Aren't some of these things limited by budget and computational power? Yeah, of course, Popple. Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. I had that with out of my project. Measured a building, built it in Blender. It looked odd. Did it again by hand and eye. Yeah, sometimes with 3D art, sometimes you got to make it look right. And that's the difference between working in CAD and working in like Maya or something. Working in Maya, sometimes you follow the proportions to a T and it just looks wrong. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just our eye looking through the 3D render or whatever. But sometimes it just doesn't look right, even if you get the proportions exact. So follow the proportions, but follow the proportions correctly so they look right. Like the Saturn V, once again, Saturn V that we made the other day, it looks like a Saturn V. It looks right. I will tell you this right now, the third stage is way too wide. The third stage is too wide, and my service module and capsule are way too big for a 5-meter core stage. The core stage for our Saturn V needs to be 6-meter wide for it to look correct. That's the scaled proportion. And that's something to understand. What's that, Mash? Hold on. Yeah, Match. Try to avoid self-advertisement, man. At least ask me if you're going to do something like that, okay? The new weekly challenge. I saw it. I always wondered who modeled those characters. Now I know. Yeah. The character modeling is fine. The characters look great if they just took a still image of it, Biff, but the animations are weird because it's interpolated mocap. So like motion capture is when you put like a bunch of nodes on it and you have a bunch of cameras looking at you and you act it out, right? You act it out. But sometimes even that motion capture data that is literally based on actual human movement doesn't look right in 3D. It doesn't look right. It looks weird. There's some uncanny valley going on there. Like, you know something is wrong, but you can't really put your finger on it. And that's what I mean. That's the whole analogy with the impact wrench, right? I can make an exact replica of this in 3D down to, like, a micron, right? And if it doesn't look right, everyone's going to know it's not right. But that's the thing about 3D. You have to make it look right, especially if you're doing game stuff. Game design, environment modeling, it has to look right. The other thing is scale. Make sure everything is scaled correctly. Now, you can you can change the proportions of something, right? But if my hand is the size of the damn impact wrench, right? Like, say my hand is this big and the impact wrench is this big. Everyone's going to know, that impact wrench is too small. And they're not going to know why this scene is wrong. You'll just know it's wrong. So take that into account. That's the best advice that I can give when you're doing 3D modeling. Try to avoid uncanny valley at all costs. And that's why 3D art is tedious, because you could spend 8 hours straight modeling a firearm for a video game, or a tank for a video game, or an airplane, right? And you can make the exact proportions, and then you put it in the game. And you put it in the game, or you look at it and you're like, that doesn't look right. Something is very wrong here. Yeah, there was a SpaceX launch earlier, Corsi. Yep. Yeah, Wilmox, I do. It's on the book list is in my Discord channel if I'm remembering. It's in the Discord if I'm remembering right. They experienced this with the puppets in the Team America movie. The puppeteers apparently developed an algorithm to match the puppet movements to the voices. Trouble was it was too good. Audiences were freaked out, so they had to dumb it down. Yeah, Alice, that's a good example. If you've ever watched a Pixar movie, for instance, every animation is super over-animated. There's a very good reason for that, because Pixar tries at all costs to avoid that uncanny valley. They try to make the characters look real. So have you ever noticed, like, you know, if you're having a regular conversation with other normal humans, you know, like, hey, I did this today. Oh, that's really freaking cool. That's really cool. Congratulations, right? In the movie, it'd be like, oh, wow, that's so cool. You did it. You know, like, that's the difference. They're over-exaggerated on purpose because it's not about making it look realistic. It's about making it look right. So next time you're watching any Pixar movie or any 3D movie, every single expression is over-exaggerated because if they tried to make it look right, the character would look like this. It would look like they're just sitting there talking to a wall. Trust me on that one. And like I said, Polar Express is a good example of that. Yeah, Doofless, there you go. Toy Story 1 freaked people out. Yeah, there's some... You see it with Toy Story 1 a little bit. Like, I'll give you an example. And once again, we studied this in school. You know, when Buzz Lightyear lands in Andy's room, right? And he's like, Buzz Lightyear to Star Command. There seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere. When he's blinking, he blinks one eye and the other. He goes... And it looks weird. Also, the aliens, the claw, they do the same thing. They'll go like this. They blink one and the other, which is weird. Go back and watch. You'll be like, what the frick? Oh. Hey, happy birthday, Zizep. Yeah, Aqualix, yeah, that's the big one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, Rick. Yep. Dude, there's little stuff like that in movies all over the place. Even in like real movies. Here, you want to see a weird one? I know, dude, we studied all about this. Like, look, here, I'll show you. All right, so this is a scene from a movie called Lord of War. A used gun. That's a good one. And don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of violence here, but I'm trying to get to the right scene. So watch this. I'll mute it because I don't want to get DMCA'd or anything. Yeah, that. Watch. That's a good one. Now watch. Let me see if I can find it. It's in here somewhere. Nah, dude, it's a part of that scene, and I'd have to go look. It's a part of the scene where Nicolas Cage is talking, he's doing a monologue, right? And he does something like this. He looks down at the gun and then looks up and then blinks, and it looks wrong. It looks wrong because they played the same exact shot, but in reverse of the previous shot. I gotta find it. It's in here somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Hang on one second. I swear it was this scene, but I don't want to show parts of it because you see somebody get clapped pretty hard. Like, it's pretty messed up. Give me 1 second, I'll find it. Use gun. That's a good one. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Nah, that scene ended before it's in there. Here, hold on. Let me see if we can find another one here. Is it at 109? Let me take a look. Is it that same video, Force? Dude, he blinks backwards. It's the weirdest thing. But you wouldn't notice. Like, you don't notice it, but if you look at it later... I'm trying to find it. Yeah, it's in there somewhere. Yeah, it's in that scene, dude. He's like, it's like a slow motion of him talking, and he's like, I mean, or he's just doing a Nicolas Cage. But we looked at that stuff in school, and we used that scene as an example. I remember. But I don't remember where it is. Either way, let's continue with the U5 thing, and then we'll get back to KSP.
All right, let's head on out, Jacob.
On my way.
In terms of performance, substrate materials that are similar to the current Unreal Engine shading model cost about the same. But now, artists have the freedom to author more complex materials for extremely detailed use cases, like in cinematics and in film. So we're going to drive under this fallen tree here, and everything that you've seen up to this point was painstakingly hand-built by the environment team at Quixel. Everything since that fallen tree has been built using our brand new experimental suite of procedural content generation tools, entirely an engine that are flexible, deterministic, and artist-driven.
Unbelievable.
Our guiding principle in building these systems was to empower artists to make tools for artists. So Jacob's going to go ahead and add a procedural assembly to the world. And the cool thing is that it communicates. Thank you. Yeah. Pretty cool. And the cool thing is that it communicates with other nearby procedural elements in the scene, like the creek bed. So let's say a designer comes by, wants to direct the player to drive to the left. Jacob can simply move the assembly to the right, and everything updates to accommodate that change.
That is impressive. Yeah, that's... So, guys, this isn't like right here. Like, I'm not trying to put a buzzkill on it. That's pretty damn impressive that you can do that and change the render in real time. Procedural generation like that is not anything new. This is just using it in a way where it compensates for static place meshes, which is pretty cool. That's not like super groundbreaking, but it's one of those things that's like super useful. Think of it like grid fins on Falcon 9. Grid fins aren't a new thing. That's been done before. But the grid fins on Falcon 9 allow a 15-story building of a rocket to come down and land on a drone ship. It's really important to its design. That's what that is.
Game design is iterative, so let's say the designer comes back, wants to give the player the choice of going left or right again. Jacob can simply move the assembly back over. Now, the artist who created this assembly also added some additional handles that Jacob can use to art direct where rock slides occur. Allows him to customize the piece a little bit more, make it a little easier for the Rivian to drive by. So we started by handcrafting that original part of the level to set the visuals and art direction for the entire piece.
Static
And
mesh
then built out
environment
procedural
modeling.
tools that allowed the team to create a much larger play space much more quickly. Now let's see how we can use these procedural tools to make larger sweeping changes to the environment. So Jacob, let's start by removing some of the trees in this.
Dude, in 2008, if you tried to do something like this, you would fry a computer. And I'm not talking like trying to do it in real time. Like rendering a frame of this in 2008 would have taken hours. Yeah, the fact that it adapts in real time, Dish, like, there's procedural generation that does work like that, but procedural generation that's working around static meshes that you place in the environment is insane. That's really cool.
Area.
Absolutely, that's easy enough actually.
All right, a little too much. Let's add some trees back in.
Scatterer.
And let's also add in some cliff formations, give it a little bit more
What?
variability.
Oh my god.
So the
Okay.
procedural systems are all deterministic. As Jacob is experimenting with different sets of input parameters, once he finds a set that he likes, he can always go back to it and get out exactly the same results. And the procedural systems aren't just placing trees and rocks, but also fog cards, bugs, birds, everything that's needed to bring this environment to life.
That's damn impressive.
And
dude.
everything that you've seen here works at scale. This environment is 4 kilometers by 4 kilometers. If we hide all of the procedural elements, we can see that original hand-built area about 200 meters by 200 meters. We believe that there will always be the need for hand-building environments, so we design these procedural systems to be tools for artists that work in concert with hand-built content.
That's bananas.
Both Substrate and the new procedural tools will be available in experimental form in 5.2. And everything you've seen here is running in the Unreal Editor in real time on a developer machine with an Intel 13900K CPU and NVIDIA RTX 4090 GPU. So Jacob,
Okay.
thanks for being here and helping us out today.
Thank you.
All right, so you know what I was thinking? You could, so here's the 3D artist in me going off here. So you could take this, guys, and you could do static meshes, right? You could do static meshes of a couple of buildings, right? Say like if you had a game where you were driving around in a city and you needed to go inside of a building, right? You could hand model those buildings, right? And have those interiors be super detailed down to a T, like that are the buildings that you would need to drive a story arc. Like a good example is in GTA, right? Like GTA 5, the bank heist that you do at the end. The Union Depository, right? There's a custom modeled interior for that. It's super detailed on purpose, right? That is detailed because it's story driven, right? With this, you could do a scatterer in a procedural terrain generation system that instead of trees and stuff, it could be street lights, it could be streets, buildings. Sure, why not? You could theoretically generate a procedurally driven city that's 4 square kilometers. Or that's 2.5 square miles or something, which is insane. That's a lot of environment. But you could do the same thing with a city. Sure, why not? You just got to tweak the procedural parameters. Yeah, that's really, really impressive stuff. Have you seen the UE5 City demo? It's just like this, and you can download and play it now.
Both Substrate and the new
Is that the Matrix one, Mauser?
in 5.2. And everything
Yeah,
you
the
see
Matrix.
here
Okay,
is running.
yeah, the Matrix demo was U5. I forgot if it was U5, but yeah, you could do that. You could absolutely do it. And the crazy thing is that it scales. You could do it, and with how they tessellate, like how they do, like 3D resolution and texture. So tessellation detail, tessellation LOD, and texture LOD. You can, yeah, you could make. You could make a city the size of the GTA 5 map in Unreal, and it really wouldn't be a problem. And I think that's what that Matrix demo is. Yeah, that's really cool. Really, 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 really crazy procedural generation. That's awesome. Really cool. So, something that I kind of thought would be an interesting idea when UE5 first came out right? So you could do an ultra high detailed 4 square kilometer area, but I'm wondering what the scalability limits of that procedural generation system is. Because if you're going super high res like that, obviously you're going to have a 4 square kilometer area that's really, really, really detailed, right? Like this. It's going to be super detailed and it's going to look great. But I'm wondering if you can tweak the procedure. I mean, you probably can, but I'm wondering if you can tweak it so it can be lower resolution. Lower resolution on the textures, and instead of making a 4 square kilometer map that's super freaking detailed, right? Make a 40 square kilometer map that's moderately detailed. Like, what's the end scalability of this? I'm wondering where the upper limits of the scalability on their procedural terrain generator is. So again, I want to see what you can do with UE5. Put that 3D to work. Yeah. Well, theoretically, that's where Nanite would come in. You could procedurally generate at extreme detail, and Nanite allows for it to run. Yeah, Dwarshak, I understand that, but... Yeah, for sure. I understand that, but what about... The reason why I'm asking about a 40 square kilometer low-res detail procedurally generated map is because what... For a single-player game, Nanite seems to be solving the problems. Like, how does that work with multiplayer? Is Nanite multiplayer optimized? Or is it just optimized for a single player, So, yeah, what's the end limit there? With it being procedural 4K, where it can always be centered around the player, no matter how far the player goes. Mm-hmm. Fortnite uses nanite trees and rocks. Oh, there you go. Nanite is optimized for static objects regardless of single versus multi. That's cool. Yeah, so... Yeah, once again, I wonder what the upper scalability limits are for that. Like, could we make like 100 square mile map and it really wouldn't be a big deal? With certain areas like hand modeled, like can it get like how crazy can you actually get with this? Yeah, Dwarshak, pretty much, yeah. Probably not good to use for animated objects, no. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to show you guys. We were talking about Uncanny Valley, and I saw it. I saw it going on right here in this shot. Watch the suspension. Does that suspension look right? Watch it go up and down.
Chaos vehicle model to simulate the suspension of the truck and how the
Did you see it? Did it look right? That didn't look right. Thing's doing this. Suspension doesn't do that. It doesn't... Suspension... And I can tell you exactly what the Uncanny Valley is. Suspension does not rebound with the same force that it goes up with. If it did, it wouldn't be suspension. That's why that looks weird. It's bouncy, right? Well, suspension. All suspension has a damping force on it. It's designed to slow down the upward motion of the wheel. So unless your rebound force is the same as your damping force, the wheel's never going to do this exactly. And usually it's not. Usually the spring is way stronger than the shock absorber. The reason why is the spring needs to hold the vehicle up. So the fact that this is going up and down at the same speed makes it look really weird. It doesn't look right.
Set up Unreal's Chaos vehicle model to simulate the suspension of the truck.
See what I'm talking about? It's going up and down at the same speed. That little things like that is what I'm talking about. Can you slow it down? Slowing it down is going to make it look... It's not going to do what you think it's going to do. Here. That's good sound. But see, I didn't explain why it doesn't look weird, but it just does. It just looks weird, right? Like you wouldn't be able to know unless you knew a little bit about suspension why that looks weird, but even if you don't know anything about suspension, you can tell that that's not real, right? Like, yeah, even in slow-mo. That doesn't, yes, that doesn't, it's going up and down at the same exact speed. Right? Like I said, the procedure of, they said it's deterministic, so all you need is to transmit is the base hand sculpted elements and the input values. You don't need to transmit the whole map pre-baked. Yeah, but I'm talking about if you could, like if you needed to, could it do it? That's what I'm saying, Aqualux. But yeah, there's no reason they couldn't do a whole Earth driving sim. Like, okay, so imagine UE5 with its big gigantic environments with like American Truck Simulator. Like, think about a truck simulation game. Like, you could literally make a procedural map that's gigantic. That's freaking huge. Think about that with a train building game like Railroads Online. SnowRunner, you could literally, like, they could have the entirety of, you could model the entirety of Yellowstone Forest, right? Yellowstone National, and you could go off-roading on it. No problem. That's what I mean. You could do Route 154 from your office. Yep. When you point it out, it looks odd, but the fact that it's simulating suspension travel gets it close enough if you aren't paying attention to the undercarriage. Yeah, Orion, but see, that's the duality of being a 3D artist. It doesn't look right, and your brain will tell you that that's 3D. Like, if you just look at this picture, right, that looks pretty damn real. It's pretty close. There are some things here and there. And what a 3D artist's job is, and it doesn't matter if it's a game, doesn't matter if it's a nice render like this, I mean, like, or a 3D rendered scene, right? Like, for a movie or whatever, your job is to sell it. And sometimes selling it doesn't mean it looks doesn't mean it has to be exactly right. But people will notice. It doesn't matter. You'll notice. Like, I can usually pick out 3D because I can see that stuff everywhere. I can already tell you, those wheels are moving way too fast. And that's, believe it or not, that's like the thing that I look at here and I'm like, okay. Weekly Challenge 5, land on Duna. Yeah, it's been linked already. Yeah, I got it. Man, you guys are linking pretty much everything but what we're talking about now. Are you guys getting bored? You want me to talk about something different? The truck is way too glossy as well. What's Vidia? Video games. It's a slang term for video games. You don't need to lower the resolution, upscale map size. Yeah, Aqualux. Just like there's no reason to optimize Kerbal's planetary graphics because, you know, it works fine on my computer, right? Yeah, I understand what you're saying, I understand what you're thinking, but that's not how you go about making a game, dude. You have to think of the lowest common denominator. You have to think of the guy that's on a 5-10-year-old PC. And it's kind of stupid that you have to, but also, people won't buy your game if you don't. Case in point, Kerbal. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. All right, we'll talk about something else then. What's the new Kerbal challenge? I haven't seen it, Jorshak. This week, the KSP2 weekly challenge is land on Duna. Primary, land a vehicle crewed or uncrewed on Duna. Stretch, land a crew on Duna, and then return them safely to Kerbin. Jeb level, land a crew on Ike, take a picture with Duna visible in the background. Then land them on Duna and take a picture of them with Ike in the background. Then fly all the way back to Kerbin. Val level, Mark Watney edition. Land an empty Kerbin return vehicle on one of Duna's polar ice caps. Land a crew somewhere other than the ice caps. Drive that crew using either a wheeled or aerial vehicle from the second landing site to the first, then return to Kerbin. That's cool, Dwarshak. Yeah, the face. I see it. I wonder where that is. I don't think anybody's found that thing to my knowledge. So, Duna architecture. Can we just say that we did this yesterday and call it a day? Someone has found face? Alright, that's cool. They're absolutely pointing us at Easter eggs. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Still need to complete the Jev and Val levels. I'd really like to see a mission to Jewel if doing is not your thing. That's how you did most of it. Now you need to hit the 2 top tiers. I don't really want to, given how the last 2 weeks have gone. You have an architecture that can reach Duna. Yeah. EJ, can you explain in 3rd grade vernacular how to phase or set up the burn for another planet? Yeah. Yeah, sure, man. Here, we'll pop back over into KSP2. We'll figure out what we want to do when we get back over there. All right, so KSP2. We'll just call this one Friday Shenanigans.